Sarah sat in the hospital room, holding her identical twin sister Emma's hand. The antiseptic smell made her nose wrinkle, but she tried to look confident as the nurse came in to prep them both. "You sure about this?" Emma asked for what felt like the 100th time. Her eyes were red from crying. Sarah squeezed her sister's hand. "Absolutely. I've never been more sure about anything." They were about to undergo a revolutionary surgery. Sarah would donate her healthy uterus to Emma, who was born without one. The procedure was still experimental, with only a handful of successful cases worldwide. "But you always wanted kids," Emma whispered. "And you've wanted them just as much," Sarah replied. "Besides, there are other ways I can be a mom someday if I want." She didn't mention that the doctors had been crystal clear. This operation meant Sarah would never carry her own children. It was a sacrifice she'd made peace with. Emma deserved this chance. Dr. Lynn entered the room with her clipboard. "Ready, ladies? Once we start, there's no turning back." The twins looked at each other, a lifetime of unspoken communication passing between them. "We're ready," they answered together. 5 years later, Sarah stood in front of a mirror in a lavish dressing room, hardly recognizing herself in the designer wedding gown. She was marrying into the Wilson family, practically royalty in their city, where their real estate business had transformed the skyline. "You look beautiful," her mother said, adjusting the veil. "James is a lucky man." Sarah smiled, but her stomach was in knots. Through the door, she could hear the string quartet playing and guests chattering. This wedding was 3 times larger than she'd wanted, but that wasn't an option when marrying a Wilson. As she walked down the aisle, Sarah caught the eye of her soon-to-be mother-in-law, Victoria Wilson. The woman's smile didn't reach her eyes, and Sarah clearly heard her whisper to her husband, "Let's hope she's as fertile as she's pretty." The Wilson name needs heirs. Sarah nearly stumbled. James caught her elbow, his handsome face concerned. "You okay?" he whispered. "Just nervous," she lied, forcing a smile. That night, after the elaborate reception, James carried her across the threshold of their wing in the Wilson family mansion. "Welcome home, Mrs. Wilson," he murmured against her neck. Sarah pushed away her doubts. James loved her. That was all that mattered. Life in the Wilson household turned out to be even more challenging than Sarah had expected. The sprawling mansion felt more like a museum than a home, with staff appearing and disappearing silently and family portraits watching her from every wall. Mrs. Wilson asked if you'd like to join the ladies for tea. The housekeeper informed her one afternoon, 6 months into the marriage. Sarah knew this wasn't really a question. She found Victoria and her friends in the garden, their conversation stopping abruptly when she approached. "Sarah, dear," Victoria said with a tight smile, "we were just discussing James's cousin and she's expecting twins. Isn't that wonderful? The doctor says it runs in families." The women all turned to Sarah with expectant looks. "That's great news," Sarah managed, accepting a teacup with shaking hands. Later that night, James found her crying in their bathroom. "Hey, what's wrong?" He wrapped his arms around her. "Your mother, she keeps dropping hints about babies." "It's only been 6 months, James." He sighed. "I know, I'm sorry. Family means everything to her. Just try to ignore it." "I'm not some kind of broodmare," Sarah snapped. James pulled back, hurt in his eyes. "I never said you were. But is it so wrong to want kids?" "No, of course not," Sarah backpedaled, guilt washing over her. She hadn't told James about her surgery. There had never seemed to be a right time, and after meeting his family, she'd realized what a deal-breaker it would be. "It'll happen when it happens," James said, kissing her forehead. No pressure. But as months passed, Sarah noticed how he grew quieter when his cousin's pregnancy was mentioned, how his gaze lingered on babies in strollers. The pressure was building, silent but relentless. "It's a boy." Emma's voice bubbled through the phone. 7 pounds, 4 ounces. "We named him Noah." Sarah clutched the phone tighter, slipping into the guest bathroom where no one would overhear. "Oh my God, Em. How are you feeling? Is everything okay?" "Everything's perfect. The doctors said the transplant couldn't have gone better." Emma paused. "I wish you could be here." Sarah closed her eyes, picturing her sister holding a newborn with their shared features. "Me too. Send pictures, okay? Tons of pictures." "Sarah?" Emma's voice dropped. "Every time I look at him, I think about what you gave up for me." Sarah's throat tightened. "Don't. Please don't feel guilty. This is exactly what I wanted." After they hung up, Sarah stayed in the bathroom for a long time, letting silent tears fall. She was genuinely happy for her sister, but the pain was sharper than she'd expected. That evening, a letter arrived with photos of baby Noah. Sarah tucked them into her personal lockbox before anyone in the Wilson household could see them. 40 years. Wilson Sr. raised his champagne glass, his booming voice filling the dining room. 40 years since I bought my first property with nothing but a loan and a dream." The extended Wilson family erupted in applause. Sarah clapped politely, watching James beam with pride at his father. "And now," the patriarch continued, "the Wilson legacy continues to grow. My nephew Richard's wife just announced they're expecting their third. The Wilson genes are strong." Sarah felt eyes turn to her. She took a large sip of champagne. Later, as servers cleared dessert plates, James's Aunt Meredith cornered her. "You know, dear, my daughter had trouble at first too," she said in a stage whisper. "Acupuncture did the trick. I know a wonderful practitioner." "Thank you, but..." "Or is it James?" Another relative chimed in. "These men work too hard sometimes. My husband had to take supplements." Sarah felt her face burning. "Excuse me, I need some air." She escaped to the terrace, only to hear Victoria's voice through the open window. 3 years and nothing. I'm starting to worry about my son's choice." That night, James came to bed smelling like whiskey. "My mother thinks we should see someone," he said without preamble. "A doctor, you mean?" Sarah kept her voice neutral. "A fertility specialist." "It's been 3 years, Sarah. I thought we agreed not to rush this." James ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I never agreed to wait forever. Everyone's watching us, waiting. My father isn't getting any younger." "So, this is about your father's timeline? Not ours." Sarah could feel an argument brewing. "Can't you at least get checked out? Make sure everything's working right." The irony almost made Sarah laugh. She knew exactly what was wrong with her. "Let's just wait a little longer," she pleaded. "The right time will come." James turned away without answering, and for the first time, they slept with their backs to each other, a cold space growing between them. "It's a girl." Emma's voice was tired but elated. "Lily Rose, 6 pounds even." Sarah pressed the phone closer, ducking into the pantry where the housekeeper wouldn't overhear. "A little girl. Oh, Emma, congratulations. How's Noah taking it?" "He keeps trying to share his trucks with her," Emma laughed. "Sarah, she has your smile. I swear, even as a newborn." Sarah leaned against the shelves, emotion overwhelming her. "Send pictures. I want to see everything. When are you coming to visit? It's been so long." Sarah closed her eyes. The Wilson family's constant surveillance made trips difficult to arrange without questions. "Soon, I promise." After hanging up, Sarah found Victoria in the hallway, watching her with narrowed eyes. "Private call," her mother-in-law asked. "Just my sister," Sarah replied, trying to sound casual. "The twin, correct? I don't believe we've met her." "She lives across the country," Sarah said quickly. "Excuse me, I have a headache coming on." In her bedroom, Sarah added the new baby photos to her growing collection, hidden away from prying eyes. 3 years into her marriage, the Wilson mansion felt less like home than ever. The staff watched her constantly, reporting back to Victoria. Twice she'd found her dresser drawers subtly rearranged, her personal items searched. And James, her once protective husband, had grown increasingly distant, spending more time at the office than at home. When they did talk, the conversation inevitably circled back to the same subject. When would Sarah finally do her duty and produce a Wilson heir? On the morning of their 5th wedding anniversary, Sarah woke alone. James had mentioned a breakfast meeting the night before. She stretched, wondering if he'd planned a surprise for later. The surprise came, but not as she expected. At noon, the housekeeper knocked on her door. "The family is gathering in Mr. Wilson Sr.'s study. Your presence is requested immediately." Sarah found the entire Wilson family waiting: James, his parents, and the family lawyer. Their faces were grim. "What's going on?" Sarah asked, her voice small in the large wood-paneled room. Victoria stepped forward, holding a manila folder. "We've been patient, Sarah. 5 years of patience while you made excuses." "Mother," James warned, but his voice lacked conviction.
"No, James.
This has gone on long enough." Victoria turned to Sarah. "We hired a private investigator. He found her medical records." Sarah's blood turned to ice. "You did what?" "You had a procedure before you met my son," Victoria continued. "One that made it impossible for you to have children." The lawyer cleared his throat. "The records indicate abdominal surgery consistent with a terminated pregnancy that resulted in complications." Sarah gasped. They had found records of her surgery but completely misunderstood their meaning. "That's not what happened," she began. "You trapped my son." Wilson Sr. spoke for the first time. "You knew what our family values, and you deceived us all." "James, please," Sarah turned to her husband. "Let me explain." But James wouldn't meet her eyes. "Were you ever going to tell me?" he asked quietly. "All those times we talked about having kids someday, was it all a lie?" Sarah felt cornered. She had promised Emma never to reveal their surgery. Her sister's infertility was deeply private, and the experimental procedure had drawn enough unwanted attention to their lives. "I can't explain everything, but it's not what you think," she pleaded. "The marriage was fraudulent," the lawyer stated flatly. "Mr. Wilson has grounds for annulment." "Annulment?" Sarah echoed, disbelieving. "You'll be provided with appropriate compensation for your time," Victoria said, as if discussing a terminated employee. "Discretion is expected, of course." Sarah looked at James, waiting for him to defend her, to demand they speak privately. But he stood silently, jaw clenched, betrayal hardening his features. "James, please," she whispered. "Just tell me the truth," he said. "Did you know you couldn't have children when you married me?" Sarah closed her eyes.
Yes.
"But I think that's all we need to hear," Victoria interrupted. "The car will take you back to pack your belongings. We expect you out by nightfall." Just like that, Sarah's marriage ended in a room full of people looking at her like she was nothing but a con artist who had failed to deliver. 2 days later, Sarah sat in a budget motel room surrounded by hastily packed suitcases. The Wilson family had acted with ruthless efficiency. The lawyers had presented papers, the household staff had watched her pack, and security had escorted her from the property. 5 years of marriage erased in an afternoon. Her phone rang, Emma calling for their weekly chat. "Hey, Sarah answered, trying to sound normal. "What's wrong?" Emma asked immediately. "You sound terrible." Sarah broke down, telling her sister everything except the specific accusation about a previous abortion. "They found out I can't have kids. They think I tricked James." "Oh my God, Sarah. That's horrible. You have to tell them the truth. Tell them about the transplant." "No," Sarah said firmly. "That's your private medical history. And, besides, do you think it would matter to people like them? I'd still be defective merchandise in their eyes." "But James sat there and let it happen," Sarah said bitterly. "He made his choice." After hanging up, Sarah looked at apartment listings in a city 3 hours away. Too close for the Wilsons to accidentally run into her, far enough to start fresh. She had her translation work that could be done remotely, some savings, and her dignity, or what was left of it. 3 days later, she signed a lease on a small one-bedroom apartment and left the Wilson family behind. The new city welcomed Sarah with anonymity. No one knew her as the failed Wilson wife or pitted her for her inability to conceive. Her apartment was small but bright, with a balcony big enough for a few potted herbs and a chair where she could translate documents in the sunshine. Her phone calls with Emma became less frequent and more strained. Her sister's life was full of the joys and challenges of raising 2 young children, while Sarah was rebuilding from scratch. Noah asked about his Aunt Sarah today. Emma said during one call, "He saw your picture." Sarah's heart squeezed. "What did you tell him?" "That his auntie lives far away, but loves him very much." "Sarah, the kids should know you." "Someday," Sarah promised vaguely, "when things are more settled." The truth was that seeing Emma's children would be a complicated joy, a reminder of both what she'd given and what she'd lost. Slowly, Sarah created a new life. She joined a book club, made friends with neighbors, and even went on a few dates, though she kept them casual. The last thing she wanted was another relationship built on lies, and telling the truth about her past seemed impossible. "You're very mysterious," commented David, a kind literature professor she'd been seeing for coffee. "I feel like you have a whole life you never talk about." Sarah smiled tightly. "Just a boring divorce. Nothing worth mentioning." Occasionally, mutual acquaintances would mention the Wilsons. James had thrown himself into expanding the family business, working longer hours than ever. He hadn't remarried or even dated seriously, according to gossip. Sarah told herself she didn't care, but sometimes at night, she still dreamed of what might have been if she'd found the courage to tell the truth from the beginning. 2 years after leaving the Wilson household, Sarah was finishing a translation project on her laptop when her phone rang at 11:37 p.m. Seeing Emma's number, she answered immediately. "Emma, is everything okay?" A male voice responded, Emma's brother-in-law, Michael. "Sarah, there's been an accident." The world seemed to tilt on its axis as Michael explained through choked sobs. Emma and her husband Robert had been driving home from a weekend getaway when their car was hit by a drunk driver on a rainy highway. Neither had survived. "The kids?" Sarah managed to ask, her voice a whisper. "They were with Robert's parents for the weekend. They're safe, but they keep asking for their mom." Sarah collapsed onto her kitchen floor, phone pressed to her ear, unable to process that her twin, her other half since conception, was gone. The pain was physical, as if part of her own body had been torn away. "I'm coming," she said automatically. "I'll be on the first flight tomorrow." After hanging up, Sarah sat in silence for hours, unable to cry, unable to move, feeling as though she too had died on that rainy highway. The funeral was a blur of black clothes and murmured condolences. Sarah moved through it like a ghost, the surreal experience of seeing faces turn to her in shock, mistaking her for Emma in that first instant, adding to her disorientation. "Mommy?" A small voice broke through her fog as tiny arms wrapped around her legs. Sarah looked down to see Noah, now 5 years old, staring up at her with hope and confusion in his eyes. "No, sweetie," she said gently, kneeling down. "I'm your Aunt Sarah. I look like your mommy because we were twins." Noah's face crumpled. "You sound like her too." Before Sarah could respond, a little girl toddled over, her dark curls bouncing. 3-year-old Lily studied Sarah's face solemnly before reaching out to touch her cheek. "Mama," she whispered. Sarah gathered both children into her arms, feeling their small bodies shaking with sobs they didn't fully understand. "I'm going to take care of you," she promised fiercely. "I'm not going anywhere." Around them, relatives whispered. Sarah caught fragments. "Who's going to raise them?" "Poor little things." "Do you think she could handle it?" Later, at the reception in Emma's house, a house Sarah had never visited, she found herself surrounded by photos of the life her sister had built. Emma and Robert on their wedding day, Noah taking his first steps, Lily sleeping in Emma's arms, and in the bedroom, tucked on a bookshelf, a framed photo of Sarah and Emma before the surgery, arms around each other, identical smiles beaming at the camera. "She talked about you all the time," Robert's mother said softly, finding Sarah staring at the photo. "The kids have known your face their whole lives." Sarah brushed away tears. "I should have visited more. Life got complicated." "Well," the older woman sighed, "life's about to get more complicated for all of us. Have you spoken to the lawyer yet? About the arrangements for the children?" Sarah shook her head. "I assumed Robert's parents." "We're in our 70s, dear." Robert knew that. "I think he and Emma made other plans." "As you can see," the lawyer said, sliding the document across his desk, "the will is very clear. Emma and Robert named you, Sarah Chin, as guardian of the children in the event of their deaths." Sarah stared at the paper, her sister's familiar signature at the bottom. "But I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. My job is freelance. I'm not prepared for this." "There's a letter too," the lawyer said gently, handing her an envelope. With trembling hands, Sarah opened it to find Emma's handwriting. "My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, something has happened to Rob and me. I'm so sorry to put this burden on you, but there's no one else I trust more with my children. You gave me the greatest gift anyone could give, the chance to be a mother. These children exist because of your sacrifice. Biologically speaking, they carry your DNA too, through the miracle of that transplant. They're as much yours as they were mine, in the ways that matter most. I know this will change your life completely. I know it's not fair to ask, but please give Noah and Lily the love I no longer can. They already love their Aunt Sarah from all the stories I've told them. All my love, forever, Emma." Sarah pressed the letter to her chest, fresh tears flowing. "She never told me any of this. There's one more thing. Dee become an instant mother to 2 traumatized children. She would have to move into her dead sister's house, sleep in her bed, use her kitchen. She would have to learn everything about them, their favorite foods, their bedtime routines, their fears and joys. And she would have to do it all while grieving the person who knew her better than anyone else in the world." Sarah moved into Emma's house the following week. The children had stayed with their grandparents initially, but it was clear they needed stability, the comfort of their own beds, their familiar surroundings. "This is Bunny," Lily informed Sarah seriously on the first night, holding up a well-loved stuffed rabbit. "He sleeps right here." She tucked the toy beside her pillow. "Got it,"
Sarah said.
Bunny has the spot of honor. And Mommy always checks under the bed for monsters, Noah added. Sarah knelt down and made a show of looking under the bed. All clear. No monsters tonight. That's what Mommy always says too, Noah whispered. After tucking them in, Sarah wandered through the quiet house, running her fingers over Emma's possessions, her coffee mug in the cabinet, her sweater hanging on a hook, her handwriting on the calendar. In the home office, she found a filing cabinet neatly organized with the children's medical records, birth certificates, school information. And at the back of the bottom drawer, Sarah discovered a shoebox that made her gasp. Inside were dozens of photos of her and James, wedding pictures, vacation snapshots, candid moments from their 5 years together. Along with them were all the letters Sarah had written to Emma during that time, detailing her growing unhappiness in the Wilson household. At the bottom of the box lay a sealed envelope addressed to the Wilson family in Emma's handwriting. Sarah opened it with shaking hands. To James and the Wilson family. My name is Emma Chin, Sarah's identical twin sister. You've never met me, but I feel I must explain something important that my sister has kept secret out of love for me. The medical procedure you discovered in Sarah's records was not what you think. Sarah donated her uterus to me in an experimental transplant surgery because I was born without one. Her sacrifice gave me the chance to have children, but it meant she would never be able to carry her own. She kept this secret because I asked her to protect my privacy, never imagining it would cost her her marriage. Sarah is the most selfless person I know, and she deserves happiness. I'm writing this in the hope that someday the truth might heal old wounds. Sincerely, Emma Chin. The letter was dated 3 years earlier, shortly after Sarah's marriage had ended. Emma had written it but never sent it, respecting Sarah's decision to keep the secret, even as it cost her everything. Sarah sank to the floor, clutching the letter, overwhelmed by fresh grief and the weight of decisions to come. For the children's sake, she would need to establish legal guardianship, enroll Noah in kindergarten, find Lily a preschool program, create a semblance of normal life amid the wreckage. And to do that properly, to give them the stability they deserved, she would have to return to the one place she'd sworn never to go again, the city where the Wilson family held sway. What do you think? Sarah asked, unlocking the door to the rental house. This is going to be our new home. Noah ran inside, exploring with the resilience of childhood. It has a backyard. Lily clung to Sarah's hand, more hesitant about change. Where's our real house? This is our real house now, sweetie, Sarah explained, kneeling to her level. Remember how we talked about moving closer to your school? It had been a whirlwind month, arranging the move, finding a house in a good school district, securing a teaching position at a language institute. Sarah had chosen a neighborhood across town from the Wilson family's influence, hoping their paths wouldn't cross. Let's pick your bedrooms, Sarah suggested, leading the children upstairs. Noah, I thought you might like the blue room. It gets morning sunshine. As the kids explored, Sarah's phone rang. The school administrator confirming Noah's enrollment. Yes, I'm his aunt and legal guardian, Sarah explained. His parents passed away recently. I'm so sorry, the administrator said. We'll need guardianship papers and his previous medical records. I'll bring everything tomorrow, Sarah promised. After hanging up, she leaned against the wall, exhaustion washing over her. Being a sudden parent was overwhelming, making sure the kids ate vegetables, remembering Lily's allergy to strawberries, helping Noah process his grief when he woke crying for his mother. And through it all, Sarah was achingly aware that they were in Wilson territory now. The family name adorned buildings downtown, parks, the hospital wing. It was only a matter of time before their worlds collided. That collision came sooner than expected. 3 weeks after moving in, Sarah took the children to the weekend farmer's market for fresh produce and the puppet show Noah had seen advertised. "Can I get a cookie?" Noah asked, pointing to a bakery stand. "After lunch," Sarah promised, examining tomatoes. "Lily, stay close, honey." Sarah glanced up just in time to see Victoria Wilson at a vegetable stall 30 feet away. The older woman was examining zucchini, her silver hair styled impeccably as always, a designer handbag on her arm. "Time to go," Sarah said quickly, abandoning the tomatoes. "Noah? Noah?" She spun around, heart racing when she didn't immediately see him. Then she spotted him, running straight toward Victoria Wilson, chasing a puppy on a leash. "Noah, wait," Sarah called, but it was too late. The boy collided with Victoria's legs, stumbling backward. "Sorry," he said, looking up with a bright smile, James's smile, complete with a dimple on his right cheek and the distinctive Wilson family eyes, a unique hazel with flecks of gold. Victoria stared at the child, her shopping basket slipping from her grasp. Sarah rushed over, Lily on her hip. "I'm so sorry," she said automatically, before freezing as Victoria's gaze lifted to her face. "Sarah," the older woman said, her voice barely audible. Then her eyes dropped back to Noah, studying his features with naked shock. "We have to go," Sarah said, grabbing Noah's hand. "Come on, sweetie." "But the puppets," Noah protested. "Another time," Sarah promised, practically dragging him away. "Sarah," Victoria called after her. "Who is that child?" Sarah kept walking, her heart pounding. In the car, she checked the rearview mirror repeatedly, half expecting to see Victoria following them. "Aunt Sarah, why are we leaving?" Noah asked. "You said we could watch the puppets." "There was a change of plans," Sarah said, forcing a calm she didn't feel. "We'll go to the park instead." Her phone began ringing, an unknown number. She silenced it without answering. The Wilson family network was extensive and efficient. By Monday morning, when Sarah dropped Noah off at kindergarten, she noticed whispers among the other parents. By Wednesday, when she picked up groceries, the cashier gave her a curious look, then glanced pointedly at Lily in the shopping cart. "Cute kid," the young man said. "You know, she looks a lot like the Wilson family." "You're related to them?" "No," Sarah said shortly. "We're not." On Friday, Sarah left work to find James's car parked across from the Language Institute. Her breath caught as she recognized him behind the wheel, watching as she emerged with the children. She hustled them into her car, feeling his eyes on them the entire time. That night, after the children were asleep, Sarah sat at her kitchen table with Emma's unsent letter in her hands. Should she mail it now? Call James and try to explain? The children deserved protection from the coming storm, but how? Her doorbell rang the following Tuesday afternoon. Sarah peered through the peephole to see a woman in a conservative suit holding a leather portfolio. "Miss Chun? I represent Wilson and Associates law firm. I have documents that require your immediate attention." With trembling hands, Sarah accepted the envelope. Inside was a formal letter requesting DNA testing for both children, alleging they might be legitimate Wilson heirs conceived during her marriage to James or immediately after. The document contained thinly veiled threats about investigating her suitability as a guardian if she refused to comply. Sarah sank onto the couch, the legal papers shaking in her hands. She had expected curiosity, maybe even confrontation, but not this clinical legal assault. The Wilson family was treating the children like property to be claimed, potential vessels for their precious DNA. She picked up the phone and called the only lawyer she knew in town. The text message arrived 3 days after the legal papers. We need to talk. Coffee shop on 5th, tomorrow for p.m.
Come alone. J.
Sarah arranged for a neighbor to watch the children after school. She arrived at the coffee shop early, choosing a table in the corner where they wouldn't be easily overheard. James walked in precisely at 4, scanning the room before spotting her. He looked older, Sarah thought, new lines around his eyes, a hint of gray at his temples. Still handsome, still carrying himself with that Wilson confidence, but changed. Sarah, he said, sitting across from her without ordering anything. You should have told me. Told you what exactly? Sarah kept her voice neutral. That you were pregnant when you left. That I have children. His voice cracked slightly on the word children. Sarah shook her head. That's not what happened, James. I saw them, he insisted. The boy has my eyes, my father's chin. The little girl, she tilts her head exactly like my sister Rebecca does when she's thinking. They're my sister's children, Sarah said firmly. Emma's kids. She died in a car accident with her husband. James leaned forward. Your twin sister. Who shares your DNA? His eyes narrowed. Did you use a surrogate? Is that what happened? You couldn't carry them yourself, so you had her do it? The irony of his accidental near-truth made Sarah almost laugh. It's complicated. Then, uncomplicated. James slammed his hand on the table, causing nearby patrons to turn and stare. He lowered his voice. 2 years after our marriage ends, children appear who look exactly like my family. What am I supposed to think? The timing doesn't work, James. Noah is 5. Lily is 3. Do the math. Exactly, he countered. We were married 5 years ago. You could have been pregnant when you left. Sarah shook her head. I wasn't. Then explain why these children share Wilson DNA. The family resemblance is undeniable. DNA testing won't show what you think, Sarah said quietly. We'll see about that. James stood up. My lawyer will contact yours about arrangements for the testing. Those children deserve to know their father. You're not their father, James. He paused, looking down at her with a mixture of anger and pain. Why are you fighting this? If they're not mine, prove it with a test. After he left, Sarah remained at the table, staring into her cold coffee. The DNA test results would only create more questions she wasn't ready to answer. James slammed the DNA report onto the lawyer's table. Explain why the kids share Wilson markers but aren't mine. Sarah, seated beside her attorney, kept her voice steady. They belong to my twin sister Emma and her husband, Robert. James's lawyer frowned. Yet Wilson DNA appears. Sarah's lawyer replied, Mr. Wilson is not the father. Guardianship remains with Sarah Chin. James glared. Something's hidden. Those children are Wilson blood. They're 2 orphans who need peace, Sarah answered. I'll fight anyone who treats them like property. 2 evenings later, Sarah was stirring pasta when the doorbell rang. Noah darted ahead and opened the door to Victoria Wilson, elegant in pearls, holding a teddy bear gift bag. Hello, Noah. I'm Mrs. Wilson. Sarah arrived breathless. This isn't appropriate. Please leave. I brought presents. Victoria slipped inside, charming Lily, who toddled over asking, Presents. After the children washed for dinner, Victoria lowered her voice. They resembled James at that age. Explain. They're Emma's, Sarah said. You're identical twins, Victoria corrected, wandering until Lily returned with a photo album showing Emma after surgery. What operation? Victoria asked. Sarah hustled Lily away. Victoria's eyes sharpened. There's more here. The threats will continue. Dragging them into a fight is cruel, Sarah answered, ushering her out. That night, Sarah reread Emma's final letter, feeling the walls close in. She invited James to a playground. While Noah conquered monkey bars and Lily built sandcastles, Sarah spoke. "They're just kids, James. Come tonight after they're asleep, and I'll tell you everything." Under lamplight, she laid out medical files. Emma was born without a uterus.
I donated mina.
The transplant worked. She carried Noah and Lily. Some tissue mixed with theirs, causing the DNA overlap. Genetically, they're Emma and Robert's. James stared. "You sacrificed your fertility for her?"
Yes.
"I tried to tell you, but your family obsessed over heirs. Then your mother stole my records, and you sided with her." He winced. "I was wrong." James demanded a meeting with his parents. In the Wilson mansion's icy parlor, Sarah retold the story, showing Emma's letter and journal articles on uterine transplant chimerism.
Victoria blanched.
"You married James without revealing you couldn't bear Wilson heirs. And you spied on me," Sarah shot back. James stood by Sarah. The legal pressure stops. Sarah is guardian. Any contact depends on her. The Wilsons withdrew their petition. Weeks later, a trust fund for the children arrived with a note from Edward Wilson. No strings attached. Life settled. Sarah taught languages. Noah thrived in kindergarten. Lily loved dance class. Sometimes Sarah noticed James's car near the park or found thoughtful gifts, books on astronomy, art sets, left anonymously. At Emma and Robert's graves, one Sunday, Sarah found James placing white roses. Noah whispered, "He has eyes like me." James knelt. "Your mom was special." He invited them to the planetarium. Sarah said, "Maybe one step at a time." Over the next year, boundaries softened. James joined barbecue afternoons, helped Noah launch rockets, watched Lily's recitals. Victoria brought cookies instead of lawyers. Edward sent science kits rather than subpoenas. Sarah healed, too. Giving Emma her womb had once felt like losing her future, but now she saw that gift had built a different family, chosen, patient, woven from truth instead of bloodlines. One summer evening, the four lay on a blanket watching stars. Noah pointed a telescope skyward, whooping when he spotted Saturn's rings. James laughed, sharing high fives. Lily curled beside Sarah, humming Emma's lullaby. Sarah breathed deep. Meteors streaked overhead, proof that after fiery endings, new paths of light appear. That night, after the Wilson meeting, Sarah lay awake on the couch with both children asleep upstairs. Moonlight sketched pale rectangles across the carpet. She remembered the hospital room 8 years earlier where Emma, gaunt but glowing, squeezed her hand and whispered, "If this works, our lives will braid together forever." Surgeons had warned of rejection, hemorrhage, and lifelong medication, yet Emma had beamed. "Worth it," she'd said. "Worth it," Sarah repeated now, hearing Noah's soft snores through the baby monitor. She opened Emma's worn notebook, filled with entries about every kick, craving, and midnight worry. Beside each line, Sarah had scribbled replies, jokes, encouragement, silly sketches of caped babies titled Future Superheroes. The pages smelled faintly of antiseptic and peppermint tea. Touching them steadied her pulse. At dawn, while packing lunches, Sarah received an email from James. "I've convinced my parents to drop the suit. I want to help, not hover. Could we arrange regular visits, your terms?" She read the line 3 times. 5 years earlier, it would have felt like salvation. Now she felt cautious optimism. She replied, "Begin with Sunday afternoons at the community garden. They love digging." Sunday arrived breezy. James showed up in jeans instead of his usual suit, carrying tiny gardening gloves and sunflower seeds. Noah barraged him with questions about worms and photosynthesis. James knelt in the soil until his trousers were muddy. Lily placed a dandelion crown on his head, declaring him Plant King. He wore it proudly all afternoon. Driving home, Sarah smiled at the memory of James balancing the yellow crown atop parted hair. Something rigid inside her had loosened. Weeks rolled into months. Garden visits expanded into library story time, then short hikes. Each step was cleared by the children's therapist to preserve stability. James never missed a session, even rescheduling business trips. When Victoria timidly asked to attend Lily's preschool talent show, Sarah agreed on one condition: no talk of lineage. Victoria, misty-eyed, watched Lily wobble through a tiny ballet spin and clapped louder than anyone else in the auditorium. One snowy December evening, they decorated Sarah's small Christmas tree together. James untangled lights while Noah debated ornament placement like a miniature engineer. Lily hung every glittery heart in one cluster at eye level, announcing, "This is the love corner." Sarah surveyed the room, James laughing atop the stepladder, children glowing with anticipation, fragile peace holding firm, and felt gratitude. The past could not be erased, but it could be outshone by present kindness, patient apologies, and steady, bright hope ahead. Later, after hot chocolate and bedtime stories, Sarah journaled a single line. "Emma, your gift keeps unfolding. My heart is full." Outside, snow muffled the street, and the little house glowed warm, a quiet promise that chosen love could rewrite any legacy for them all.